The history of humanity is a series of actions aimed at breaking down barriers. We conquered death. We conquered pain. But there remained one final boundary, one last fortress we always yearned to breach. The line between the subconscious and the material. For millennia, the dream was a sacred sanctuary. It allowed us to be gods, to possess the entire universe, provided we woke up and accepted reality. The dream was humanity's safety valve for madness. It protected the world from our uncensored desires. And then, the manifestation event occurred. It was not an explosion. It was an energy event that accidentally broke that barrier. Instantly, the deepest will of every single person became a law of physics. Your dream was no longer an illusion. It was material. We achieved absolute liberation, and immediately, we fell into hell. Because we forgot, a boundary is not a prison. It is respect. And when the world listens to everyone at once, it is no longer called listening. It is called absolute chaos. Part 1. The paradise of wishes and the meaninglessness of satisfaction. The liberation from asceticism. The first 48 hours. Let's call it the honeydew age. Everyone achieved what they wanted, without compromise, without delay. Your dream of the perfect house, the perfect lover, the wealth, all materialized in the blink of an eye. We believed we had defeated the law of effort, the very thing that had bound humanity for millennia. Philosophers called this absolute instant gratification. No more labor, no more sickness, no more struggle. We had everything we could imagine. We didn't need to seek love, we just needed to dream love. And it was there. Paradise was validated, not by a deity, but by our own infinite will. The death of process. The problem was not the matter we created, but the meaning we destroyed. Happiness is born from a process. Waiting, failure, learning, overcoming. When the process was erased, we were left only with the final product, and it was cold, empty. We began to ask if I can dream a perfect car, and it appears instantly. What is the point of spending 20 years designing it? If a perfect symphony sounds with a single thought, is learning a single note still necessary? Our world became an endless library of meaningless achievements. We were kings who owned diamond castles we never sweated to build. Joy was stripped of its depth. It became a thin, glittering, and hollow lacquer. The moment of coldness. And then, the first horror was not a nightmare, but the void arising from absolute satisfaction. We could no longer distinguish between what we truly needed and what we merely fleetingly wanted while asleep. Every desire carried the same weight. There was no hierarchy. There was no appreciation. The price of a perfect diamond was the same as the price of a glass of water. We looked at the perfect lovers we created from our subconscious, and we saw coldness. They were reflections of our desire, not independent, mysterious, challenging beings. We destroyed the mystery, and therefore, we killed love. This was the first tragedy of the age. We had achieved heaven, and instantly, we discovered we were no longer capable of feeling it. Part 2. The shadow behind perfect moments. The conflict of unconscious wills. Emptiness was not the only problem. The greater issue was overlapping. I dream of a bright, eternal sun, but my neighbor dreams of long, romantic rain. Our dreams didn't destroy each other. They coexisted, creating an undefinable reality where the sun and rain fell simultaneously and light no longer created logical shadow. We began to discover a new law. Every will holds equal power. A child's wish for a giant candy could collapse the bridge a diligent engineer dreamed into existence. This was not war. This was unintentional chaos. We didn't need to intentionally harm each other. We just needed to want different things, and that was enough to tear the world apart. The collapse of physics. In a world governed by desire, objective reality was dismissed. Water didn't need to flow down. Fire didn't need to be hot. Everything followed only the logic of the nearest dreamer. You could step onto a street, and in one breath, it turned into a tropical forest, then a sea of sand, then a vast void. This instability created a new fear, colder than the fear of death, the fear of non-existence. We were no longer afraid of being injured. We were afraid that we, or our loved ones, would be dissolved by the intense dream of another, becoming a meaningless detail in their world. The unmasked enemy. We looked for a mastermind, an organization, a common enemy to blame, but we only found ourselves. The enemy was not conscious greed or hatred. The enemy was subconscious egoism, the basic, raw, uncensored needs of billions of brains. We began to understand something even more dangerous than beautiful dreams: the hidden fears. One person's fear of failure could create invisible barriers that trapped an entire neighborhood. Hidden envy could turn a neighbor's assets to dust. Fear, it turned out, was the strongest and fastest creative energy of humankind. The great sacrifice. And then, the first sacrifice appeared. Not a heroic sacrifice on the battlefield, but the sacrifice of consciousness. Those who could not endure the chaos, or those who understood their dreams were too dangerous, voluntarily chose a philosophical exit: the induced coma. They plunged into deep sleep, relinquishing their individual will, becoming invisible, silent guardians. They chose not to exist so others might have a chance to exist. We learned that the price of a shred of stability is absolute renunciation. This posed the coldest question. Between absolute freedom and stability, are we willing to trade our will? Part 3. When nightmares reign. The collective subconscious disaster, the chaos of beautiful dreams, could ultimately be endured, provided we stayed awake. But then, the event happened. A widespread crisis, a system failure, a massive lie exposed, a shared trauma, caused millions of people to go to sleep with a single, collective fear. It was no longer an architectural clash. It was emotional extremism. One person's fear of failure, multiplied by billions, created tangible monsters holding walls and scenes of nuclear war that we only saw in banned films. The collective nightmare reigned. We realized a terrifying truth. Fear is always more potent and symbolic than hope. In the subconscious, we visualize destruction faster and more clearly than any vision of love. Our world didn't just break. It was devoured by the very darkness we suppressed. The vengeance of fear. Existence became a continuous flight. No one dared to close their eyes. Sleeping became an act of terrorism against one's neighbors. We were responsible for every fleeting thought, every hidden anger, every unfounded obsession. Your fear of being watched could turn your neighbors into dark silhouettes. An elderly person's fear of decay could cause the surrounding space to freeze and rot. We understood. Evil doesn't need to be a moral choice. It only needs to be a deep-seated thought. And when the boundary between thought and matter is erased, we are forced to face the true demons. The disgust we accumulated about ourselves and others over thousands of years. This was the punishment for our arrogance. the emergence of the sensors. And in that chaos, the Dream Sensors organization was born. They were individuals of extraordinary willpower, equipped with technology to enter the subconscious of others and intervene. They were saviors, but also tyrants of the soul. Their mission was purification, eliminating nightmares, replacing them with simple, safe, manageable dreams. They proved that to sustain life, we must censor each other's minds. Our absolute freedom led to absolute destruction, and now to survive, we are forced to accept control over the most personal thing, the freedom of thought. The final moral choice. This was the tragic climax. We faced the worst choice. On one side was absolute freedom chaos, and on the other was censored stability. We had to abandon the ideal of free will to buy back a fragment of reality that could survive. The world was held hostage by its own subconscious, and now we must pay the price for the chaos by selling the right to dream, the right to fear, and the right to be ourselves. Part 4. Enlightenment in Chaos. The truth of respect. We traversed heaven and hell, and now we stand among the ruins to reflect on our first mistake. The mistake was not creating the technology, but destroying the limits. We used to call boundaries prisons, chains, prohibitions, but what is a boundary, really? A boundary is respect. The boundary between my will and your will is respect for the independent right to exist of another. The boundary between imagination and matter is respect for the objectivity of reality. We claimed the right to invade every space, and in doing so, we destroyed our shared living space. We learned that it is not absolute freedom that creates peace, but absolute respect for the limits of others. We traded all of reality for instant gratification, and in return, we had to accept eternal control. The rebirth of process. The emptiness from part 1, when everything was too easily obtained, now became the key to moving forward. We realized, without boundaries, without separation, there is no yearning, no hope, and no disappointment. And all of that creates the meaning of life. Now, if we dream of a simple flower, we must spend weeks ensuring that dream materializes safely, without blowing away the neighbor's roof. The process returned, not due to physical laws, but due to the collective will of caution. We learned to appreciate the difficulty, because it is the only thing that protects us from our own madness. Conclusion. The lesson of the wall. Our world did not end. It was merely reshaped. We no longer dare to dream big. We live in small, controlled areas where each person's dream is monitored and purified to ensure stability. This is a life defined by fear and caution. This is a civilization that chose survival over liberation, and that is where we end this story. We failed to create heaven, but we found the truth about the nature of limits. We won, not by making dreams impossible, but by learning to respect the walls we once yearned to tear down. What will you do with your dream tonight? Remember, this world has been shaped by things left unsaid and things we dare not face. And when you close your eyes, the whole of reality is listening.